Hello everyone, it's the Preacher coming at you today with episode 2 of the Answering Atheism series. To sum up the first episode, if you missed it, was truth matters because all religions say they can make you happy day to day and give you peace in your soul day to day, but also they say afterlife-wise, if you die and you don't have them, you're not going to make it to heaven, or you're not going to, respawn as a bunny or whatever. Or as atheists say, all that doesn't matter, and in thus that is still important, that truth is still, if that is true, that if atheists are right and that there is no afterlife, that is still important to know because that affects how I live in my day-to-day life. But more on that later. Today's episode of Answering Atheism is religion and science. So you see, right off the bat here, I don't want to say religion versus science, because that's a big misunderstanding that we have here in America, and humanists try to push, and the media tries to push, that it's the idea that there's science with all its pure and wonderful truth, and then there's religion, and this religion is this like horrible dogmatic thing which is just holding back science with all its force, that Christians, oh heaven forbid, if Christians did not exist, scientists would have made us immortal by now, which is not true. If you look, Christians and religious people in general are actually the biggest pushers of science in all of history. Name any big name scientist and he was probably a religious person somehow. Isaac Newton was a theologian before a physicist. Even Gregor Mendel, who created the genetics branch of science, was a monk. And even if you're branching out from Christianity, there's a lot of deists, there's a lot of pantheists, there's a lot of people out there who believes that there is some higher power because of science who still pushes science. So it's a funny sort of way that if you look at it, atheists have done very minuscule for the whole science thing. Although atheists claim that they are the only ones that apply science and logic, and in fact they've done the very least to science and logic. That almost every other religion has done the most, that Christianity has pushed it so much. I mean, go look it up, it's very interesting actually. So, back into the topic at hand, let us look at Mount Rushmore. We all know what Mount Rushmore is because, obviously, it's the big mountain with the faces of the presidents in it. So if we come along to that mountain in, 2,000 years or whatever, and those faces are still there, improbable from, whatever, but if they're still there and we come along it, and we find that we are looking up at them, and we see them, we are not going to think that rain and water just made them. We are going to think that humans made them, because they imply some sort of intelligent design behind them. They're complex, they're highly made, they're highly precision, and in thus, we have to imply that there is some intelligence behind that. So this goes on to our first topic, intelligence versus non-intelligence. That everything that you ever see is either intelligently made or is not intelligently made. And the difference between them are actually pretty obvious. That, I've never found a calculator lying on the beach somewhere, because intelligence makes intelligence, and non-intelligence can make non-intelligence, and that's all. And this goes on very heavily if you look around, that only intelligence can make more intelligence. That, you see this all around. And it comes from something called the Observation Principle. And what the Observation Principle is, it states that because we were not here always, because we humans have not always been here, or so-called, whatever, since we humans are not everywhere in the universe all at once, we have to assume that the principles that we know that are true, that, the laws that the universe is guided by now applies everywhere, that it applies everywhere to every time ever. Because imagine if that wasn't true, that, imagine what happens if we just say, perhaps at the beginning there wasn't all these, physics laws, there wasn't no, laws of the universe. The theories would go out of the wazoo, people would go crazy, that, the Observation Principle clearly states that there's a road that we have to follow, and this road is the laws that the universe is guided by. that we have to assume that the laws back then were the same as the laws now. And once again, the laws now is intelligence makes intelligence, non-intelligence makes non-intelligence. And I think you know where I'm going with this, is that in the beginning, the Big Bang, creationism, whatever you call it, that in the beginning, it's a very important statement, because the universe had a beginning. That there was a time in the past where the universe was not here, that there was nothing, and then there was a universe. Now, some people could argue, as some people do, that there wasn't just the universe, that perhaps it was just super highly compressed little mass ball. But once again, that just adds an extra step. What made the highly super dense mass ball? Because once again, nothing can come from nothing. Intelligence has to create intelligence, and nothing can come from nothing. That this little mass ball had to actually come from something. That it had to come from somewhere. And as science kind of points to it, before the universe there was nothing. So that just adds an extra step, that once again we're back at nothing and then universe. There are also theories that kind of go against this, which is the multiple universe theory, which is outside of our universes, there are multiple universes that kind of, crash together, that they kind of just, and voila, here we are, this universe. The issue here is, as many people say, it just goes by faith, that believing in a multiple universe theory is purely 100% faith, that there is no evidence that there's other universes outside of our own. None. That there was no evidence that any other universe created this universe. And also, that would also just imply an extra step. What created that universe? What created those universes? Doesn't matter. Another one is the Big Crunch and then Big Bang, which is just, there was a universe here first, and then it kind of collapsed down, and then it just popped back out, which is what's implied, that there was a Big Bang, and now eventually, however long later, the universe that we know is just going to crash back down. An issue here is that to imply that this has happened so many times over and over and over, it goes against the second law of thermodynamics, which is order cannot come from chaos. Everything tends towards chaos is basically what it says. And to say that the universe came together and then just came back out, one of those things breaks order. One of them, either coming in makes order out of chaos, which is wrong, or going out makes order out of chaos, which is wrong. So that just kind of breaks a principle law of the universe. So right away, we have this idea of the beginning of the universe, there was nothing, and then there was everything. So why is this? Why did this happen? And if you look back in history, many scientists did not want to deal with this, that for the longest time there was the steady state theory, which just stated that the universe was eternal and always will be here, and that it will always be eternal, and there is no beginning or end, and that's it. Because they did not want to deal with the beginning of the universe. However, Hubble came along and kind of pointed in the direction that there was a dynamic beginning, there was a specific point in time that the universe began. And Einstein with his theory of general relativity basically put the last nail in the coffin, that his theory proves without a doubt that the universe had a beginning. I don't want to get into the math, I don't want to get into science, just look it up, it's true, trust me on this. I don't want to go into the advanced stuff, I can't even understand it myself. But basically his theory proved that the universe had a beginning, a definite 100% beginning. So once again, this goes back to the idea, observation principle states that nothing creates nothing, that we've never seen anything created from nothing. And we've also never seen an intelligent thing, a complex thing, come from nothing. And that's honestly what we see in the universe. That you see, in the beginning, there was nothing, and then there was everything. And in this universe, there are certain things called the anthropic principle. And these principles are the constants that the universe and the earth have to rely on for life to be sustainable. There's 122 of them. And if one of these 122 things change even by the slightest, we die. We are dead. And it's not even like massive changes. It's if gravity changes by 10 to the negative 36th power, we are dead. Well, the sun would not exist. But also, if the universe expanded at 1/1,000,000th of the rate quicker, the stars and the galaxies could not form. If it formed at 1/1,000,000th rate slower, then it could not be sustained and was believed to have to collapse back in on itself. That everything is made so complex that everything could change in an instant, but it just doesn't. That everything is sustained so beautifully. Everything has to have some complexity about it. And this implies some sort of intelligent being that, going by just science, that observation principle, nothing makes nothing. There had to be something. There had to be a cause that created this effect, because no effect ever happened without a cause. Now, this is implying that there was some sort of higher being that created the universe, that there was some higher being, some higher intelligence that created everything. However, some people would point out that this just moves a step higher of saying, if God created the universe, what creates God? Now, to that, I'm just going to once again go back to science, scientific method, the laws of logic. This is what everything's governed by. I have seen things created. I have never seen something not created. I've never seen something created from nothing. So once again, the universe being created from nothing breaks the laws of logic and the observation principle which science is built on. However, I have never seen something that is eternal. I've never seen something that doesn't have a beginning. And in thus, this idea of the observation principle does not apply to something that is eternal. And I know many people is just going to say that's kind of a cop-out, but I disagree. That an observation principle, once again, heavily builds science up. And it clearly states that it has to be something that we observe now in the modern times, and we see things created, and it comes from something. But we've never seen something that doesn't have a beginning, and in thus we cannot theorize about it at all. And at the end of the day, let me just sum it up real quick, is that in the beginning, there was nothing, and then there was everything. And this everything was the universe, the galaxies, the stars, the planets. And in this universe, everything was very complexly made. You had the Earth, all revolved around the Earth. And the probability of this happening is basically nothing. That the probability of this happening, think of it like this, that the probability of 122 things happening to this degree is 10 to the 156th power. There's only 10 to the 70th power atoms in the entire universe. You would have to have like 1 trillion more atoms just for one of these things to be right. So, once again, intelligence makes intelligence. Intelligence creates complexity, and that's what the universe is. It is complex. I'll talk more about this on the next episode, part 2. But also, at the end of the day, I'm going to deal with something in a later episode that I'll begin with. Just a warning, it is the God of Gaps fallacy, which I'm sure a lot of people is going to complain about in this episode, which just states that if science can't explain something, we just assume it's God, and that's bad. However, as I think I've tried to show, that basic laws of science, basic laws of logic dictate that the origin of the Earth had to come from some intelligent being, that it had to have a cause of some type. That is not just assuming. That's not just assuming that, science implies that there was nothing and then there was something. But I'll deal with that more in the next episode. Check everything out in the drops down below, my contacts, comment, like, favorite, subscribe. Try to keep it nice in the comments, guys. See you next episode. The preacher signing out. God bless you.